Hey guys, this is Karen from Blue Rooster Farm, and in today's video I am sharing with you the second 12-inch finished quilt block from our chicken farm series. Last block that I shared was the rooster block, and now we're doing the hen block. It is a cute and fun block to make, and it is a completely free block. So if you're interested in seeing how to put this hen block together, stick around. So to make this hen block, you are going to need this printout right here, and it's a PDF printout that you can find the link for in the description box below this video. Just click on that and then you can download it and print it. Now you do need to make sure you have a PDF reader on your device so that it will be able to be uploaded, and if you don't have one, Adobe is a free one. It's what I use, so you can use that. So here is the pattern, and it's not actually a pattern, it is the cutting instructions and the layout. So on the back here I have the fabrics, and this is for the hen body, and I have all of these cuts right here, and it tells how many you need, and then you can label them with a letter. Here is the beak fabric, the comb fabric, and the background fabric. So there's all your cuts, the number you need, and the letters to identify them. Now in the rooster video, I shared with you the link for these tiles right here. If you did not see that and you want these tiles, you can watch this video, and embedded in this video itself is the link, and when you see it you can either use your device to read the QR code and have it take you to this printout, or you can just type the link into your browser bar and it will pop up these as well. And so on the back you're also going to see the layout. Now I have a 6-inch finished block that is going into this chicken block, and on mine I'm going to just use a Sawtooth Star, but you can use any 6-inch block that you'd like. I'll demonstrate how to make the 6-inch star, even though I've done it several times on my videos. I'll just go ahead and add it to this video, since that way you don't have to go dig up another video to watch. So here is the layout, and here are the cutting directions. So once you have those downloaded, cut your pieces, label them, and you'll be at the stage that I'm at, and we are ready to put this together. So I have the chicken fabric, the beak fabric, the comb fabric, and this is my background fabric. I've got the block fabric over to the side, and we'll do that separately. So let's get started. So one thing that I like to do is take a look at the pattern and just kind of decide how I'm going to be working it. And so what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to go ahead and just start right here in this corner and work my way across. Then I will piece together this piece and some of this piece over here, and just kind of go until I need to build this block, and then once I get this block we'll piece it together and put it all together. So the first block I'm going to need to do is N and A. So here are my pieces, N and A, and as you can see we are going to make a half square triangle, and when we make this half square triangle we are going to have a half square triangle left over, and that's okay because I like to collect mine. Now you certainly could just cut triangles and then you won't have this extra piece, but I like to have these extra pieces, and really when you cut triangles you've kind of got waste anyway. If you are new to sewing, all you need to do is just put a couple of pins like this on each corner and out of your way. And we are going to sew on the sides of this line. So we're going to go 1/4 inch away from that line on this side and 1/4 inch away from that line on this side. And then I'll bring you right back. And there is my piece that I've sewn, and I don't know if you can see those stitches. Maybe right there, 1/4 inch away from both sides of that line. Now that line there is our cutting line. So with a scissors or a rotary cutter, we can cut right on that line. now we have 2 half square triangles. So if you mess this one up, you can use this one, or you can just save this one for another project. So I'm putting that one aside. Now I have oversized this triangle, or this half square triangle, and so we need to get it to the size that we need. So let's see what it measures. And it measures just a hair over 4 inches, so we'll trim it down. Now, if you don't mind it being a little off and you are used to working with piecing and stuff, you can work with it however you like, but if you want to make sure your pieces go together correctly, I really think you need to have your cuts very accurate. This is a large block, so being off, just 1/8 of an inch or something on a cut is not going to make it not turn out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a square ruler, and of course you can use any fancy ruler that you have, and I do have one that I like from Quilt in a Day, but because not everybody has it, I'm just going to show you with a square ruler. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up, and you can give it a good press if you'd like. I think I'm going to press it toward the dark, and I'll just finger press it right now. Just like that. And then you're going to set it so that the diagonal is going like this, because when you lay your square ruler on it, and your ruler needs to be either the size that you need your block or larger, okay? So find the ones and the ones where they both come together in the same corner, and that's the corner that you're going to have at the top right. So I'm going to lay that right here. And when I lay that on here, you can see that I've probably got about 1/4 inch or a little less maybe than 1/4 inch too big of a square, half square triangle. So I'm going to scoot it just a little bit down so that I can take a little bit off of all sides, and that way it'll really square it up nicely. So I make sure that this line right here is right on my seam. Here is my 4-inch line. Here is my 4-inch line. I want to make sure it's either on that line or there's fabric extending past the 4-inch line. And then I'm going to trim outside here. And I don't think I'm going to get a whole lot outside on this one. Just a little bit. But my next cuts will get better. And we just want to make sure all of our edges are nice and 90 degrees and we have the right size square. Now I took that corner of my fabric and put it down here. So these 2 lines are now the sides that we cut, and we know that they're nice and straight and square, and we can put those lines right on the 4-inch, right on the 4-inch, this right on the seam, and anything hanging over is going to get trimmed. And I'm going to get a little more that time. So there is now a 4-inch half square triangle block. So I'm going to set this right here, and we're going to do the next part. Now we're going to take P and B. Okay, so if we lay P out long ways like this, and we lay B out like this, we are going to put the chicken bodies fabric on this right hand side, and since it matches up, it's the same size as the whole thing, just make sure you have all edges matching up. And then if you need to, you can take a pencil or a marking device, and we need this diagonal to go this way. Make sure you look at that carefully, because you could do it this way, but our dark piece or our chicken fabric is going to be up at the top. We don't want it to be up at the top. We want it to be down here at this spot. So I am just going to draw, and I'm going to get this right here, my diagonal going the same way as it is in my illustration. And just make sure you've got it right there on the corners and draw it nice and straight. Okay, now this time we are not going to sew next to it. We're going to sew right on that line. And so I'm going to take this to my sewing machine, and you can definitely pin if you need to. and I'm going to sew right on that line. Now, if you have seam tape on your machine like I do, you don't have to draw the lines. I'll probably be drawing them for you just in case you don't. So I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew right on the line. And one side is the corner, and one side we have all of this fabric with a straight line right here. This is where I'm going to start, because if I start up here, I have a tendency with my sewing machine to get this corner down in the feed dogs. And then I have to take it out and rip seams and stuff. So I'm going to start over here, and when I do that, it doesn't seem to get stuck. So that's just a little hint if you notice the same thing. And so here's the way it went. Let's see, I've got a couple threads there. And so if we flip this back, it should cover up the stuff in the background here, whatever's underneath there, and it does. So it looks just like this piece, whoops, this piece right here. And so we're good. I can take and I can cut this right here off. Now, if you have been watching my tutorials for very long, you'll know that I don't like to waste this much fabric. I'm going to take this back to my sewing machine, and I'm going to go about 1/2 of an inch away from this seam. So instead of throwing this away, I'm going to sew a stitch here, and then I'm going to cut right between the 2 stitches, and then I'm going to have a 1/2 square triangle that I can just keep, that I'm going to be making something with sometime in the future. So I'm going to do that. And there is my piece, and all I need to do now is just cut right down the middle, and then there is my 1/2 square triangle, and then here is my piece. So I'm just going to finger press that, and I think I'm just going to go toward the dark. We are going to have a seam that meets it right over here later, so I'll just try to remember that. So we have that piece now right there. Now we have a piece that is O, and this one doesn't need to be sewn in, but at this time we cannot add it because, as you see, it has something else that's going to go here. And so we are going to hold off on adding this piece right here until just a little bit. And we're going to set these back, and we're going to look at what we need to do next. So we're going to get right into the hardest part of this block. And it's not really hard, but it's working with the smaller pieces. So we're going to need U and M. And I believe we have just one of each of those. And so there's my U and my M. I've gone ahead and drawn the diagonal there because, as you see, that is a 1/2 square triangle right there. And so right sides together, and we are going to sew on each side of that line. Let me see here. I believe that's what we're going to do, because that is that. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to sew on each side 1/4 inch away. And so there I have my stitches on both sides of that line. And now I am going to just cut right on that line. Now I did oversize this one just a tiny bit, so we will trim it up, because I don't know about you, but usually my sewing isn't perfect, and so it's nice to be able to trim them and they look perfect then. So we could open it up and do the same thing that we did a while ago, or I'm just going to show you the tool that I use. This is a little quicker. This is the Quilt in a Day triangle square up ruler, and this is the 6.5 inch one, and I've had this one for a long time. They now have one that has little notches in it where it will cut off the dog ears. They have it in 6.5 inches and 4.5 inches. I also have the smaller one, and I should have pulled it out to do this little one right here. In fact, let me grab it. And this one is newer and it's a little brighter, I think. So I'm just going to use this one. I need a 1 inch square. So this side over here has the 1/2 inch right here. And then over here we have the whole inches. And then if you see these little marks over here, these are 1/4 and 1/8. so that you can do any size triangle basically. So this one's just a little easier to use for these little ones. It doesn't take as much space when you are cutting. So I'm going to lay the 1-inch line, which is that line right there, on the seam. So you find your seam, you lay it right there. And you can see I have a little bit of extra fabric on both sides. Now, if I knew that this side right here was nice and straight, which it isn't, it's got the other fabric hanging out. But if it was, I could just scoot my ruler all the way over and use that edge and only have to trim off this side. But my side there is not very good. Let me see if this one looks better. This one's a little wonky too. So I'm just going to use this and trim both sides. And what's nice about this is that you only have 2 sides right now to trim instead of your 4 sides that we did when we used the square ruler. So I don't have my glasses on right now, so I'm trying to make sure I've got that on the seam. It's white on white, and then it's through the plastic. That should be it. And just trim those pieces away. And now we have our 1-inch half square triangle, but before I open it up, I am just going to cut my notches. These are my dog ears, and I cut them, let's see if I can show you. I cut them so that it goes in. If you were just to cut them straight like this, you can still see them. Let's see if I put it over here, maybe. Oh, it's hard to see. See, you can still see it. But if you cut it at an angle like that, then it's hidden. So let me go ahead and put a little angle on this one. You don't want to cut through your seam. Keep that stitch there. Okay. And there we have it. And I can give that a good press too. So I'm going to give several of these blocks that I have up here a good press in just a second, but we're going to keep working and then I'll do the pressing. Let's do this really tiny piece up here for the comb. I need V and then 2 L's. And while I'm getting that V, I'm going to go ahead and get the other one too. So 2 V's and 2 L's. Okay. Our L's are little rectangles, and I guess I'm going to have another, this is my V's. I guess I'm going to have another V somewhere. Yes, I'm going to have another one right here. So I've got an extra V here. So I'm going to put that back on my board. And then I have 3 L's. 1, 2, and this other one's for over here, and we'll use that here in a minute. So I'll put this one back on my board. So we have the V's, which are long rectangles, and they're both going to go just like this. And then these are squares that we're going to use to make this into a flying geese block. Now you can use different methods for making flying geese, but this one right here for when you're making one this small is probably the best. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do one side at a time, because if we tried to do 2 sides on at the same time, we are overlapping and we're going to be stitching down those pieces and they're not going to be able to flip back. So we're going to do one at a time. And basically what I'm going to do, let's see if I've got my marking pen and my ruler. We are going to draw a diagonal line just like we have right here. So it's going to go down like that from corner to corner on our L piece of fabric. So this, I'm going to make it kind of dark here so you can see it right there. And this is a disappearing ink pen, and it is nice. I just ordered another one. It is Air Erasing Sew Line. Fat Quarter Shop right now has Sew Line pens until the end of this, I guess until the end of March, which is coming right up. So they have all their Sew Line products on sale, but by the time I get this video out, it might be over. So I've got my line right there. Now I'm not going to put any pins because this is a small piece, but what I can do, I can use some Elmer's washable glue, and it doesn't even have to be washable because this is going to be cut off. And as you see, I flipped that over because this corner right here is our waist corner. And I'm just going to put a little bit of glue right there, and I'm going to press that down. Because once I flip this corner back, that back piece gets cut off. So I don't care if there's glue in there. And if you were keeping that in, this washes out and your needle can go through it and all of that, so it wouldn't affect quilting it or stitching it. So you can leave that in if you need to. So what I'm going to do is take this to the sewing machine, and again, I'm going to not start here at this point. I'm going to start right down here because we've got a nice straight edge and my corner won't get sucked down into my feed dogs. So I'm going to go right on that line. And there we go. I have sewn that right on that line, and it should go like that. When I flip this back, it covers up that background fabric, so I can trim that off. And one thing, when I'm working with these really small blocks where just a little bit of fabric makes a difference, I do tend to stitch. Let me see if I can get that. Do you see the line? It is right to the right of my stitches. I sew just right next to the line. That way that thickness of the fabric can cover up all of that. If you're working with bigger blocks and like this one up here, it doesn't make much of a difference. But these little ones, it does make a difference. So I'm just going to cut 1/4 inch about away from the back there. And we've got our first side on our flying geese block. Press it back, and I'll just use my fingers. Now we can lay the other one right sides together, and now we can cross them. It's okay. And again, I'm going to take my marking pen and a straight edge, and I am going to take that square, and that is L, and I am going to go, get my glasses on there, from corner to corner. It's hard to see when it's dark fabric. Okay, so again, we can take a little bit of glue, and this is the side that's going to be cut off, so I'll just put it right there. Fold that back, press it down, but when you press it down, make sure you have your edges all even there. And now I'll take this one to my sewing machine and sew from this point right here up to the corner. And so there we have it stitched. Flip it back, it covers, and we have a nice little triangle, and there should be 1/4 inch right there. And if it's going too close to the edge, you might want to try doing this one again and just making sure everything's lined up. Because if you want your point right there to be a point, you'll want to do that. And if it doesn't, it doesn't have to be on this because it is the comb. But if on another block where you're really worried about your points, just watch that right there. So let's just cut that off 1/4 inch away from the edge. And again, just estimating. Now this is ready to be pressed. So before I press it, I'm going to take my other L piece, and I'm going to put them side by side. Make sure you have your points going up on your flying geese block, or these side corners, I guess. Your flying goose in the middle is pointing down. And we're going to put your other L or your other V piece on the left. So right sides together, right there. And we're going to sew 1/4 inch. Just make sure they're lined up. Don't want it wonky. 1/4 inch away from the edge so that both of those are stitched together. And there we have those two pieces sewn together. So this is going to be right here. Let's see. Yep, like that. And then this one is going to be like this. But we still can't sew anything together because we need this piece right here. And this is, well, actually we need C. There's a piece right here. So we need C, and we need our other L. C and L. All right. Now these two are pretty close together in the same color. So what we need to do is we need to put L in the top left corner. Now it should be the same size. Yep, it is the same size, so it fits all the way around, but we need to have the line going this way. So again, we're going to take our straight edge and our pin and draw that line. And on this one, you can definitely use the glue. And since we need this edge right here to lift up, this is the one that we need to glue. So just put a dab of glue there. That'll hold it in place while we are sewing. And now I will stitch from this side right here to this bottom corner. And there we have it. We can flip this back to make sure it's covered, and it is. Let's just cut that about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. Just eyeball it. And we can press this one too. Now this is the one that we said needs to be pressed the opposite of this corner. So we're going to press this one. So it's going to go right there. We're going to press it toward the comb fabric. So there is that right there. Okay, now at this point I can put, let's see what I've got here. I can put these 2 blocks right here together. And so let's go ahead and do that. Let's put right sides together, and we are going to sew 1/4 inch away from the edge. And if you're new to sewing, be sure you pin, because you don't want to get that off. And I have pressed it, and I just pressed it one way or the other. Now we are going to be matching that up with this right here and another piece. So we'll have that piece just go the opposite way. Okay. All right. So now these 2 pieces right here, we can sew these 2 together. So I'm going to give this a press here before I sew them together, but I'm going to go right sides together, and they should match up. And if they're not, go ahead and put a pin here and put a pin here, and then they don't match up anywhere else, so you don't have to worry about that. But whichever end is the loose end, mine is just a little bit on this side, not much, just lay that toward your feed dogs, and that will take up any of that extra fabric. So 1/4 of an inch right here, and if you want to keep your point, watch right there when you're sewing and stay on this side of the point. And there we have it, and the point matched really nicely. As you can see, if you can see, let's see if we can get it to focus. Right there. I sewed right above that point, and that way we've got a nice point there. So here is this block, and it's going to go right here. So let's just go ahead and sew these 2 together. Right sides together, pin if you need to, and sew 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. And there we have it, and I just press toward this fabric here because there's no seams or anything, and it doesn't have any bulk that way. So that is what we have right now. Now let's get this block right here in. That is E, and that's just plain E, nothing on it. And so there it is. We can just take this piece, put it right sides together, so just like this, 1/4 inch away from the edge. And there we have that one, and I went ahead and pressed. I believe we can get away with pressing it toward this piece right here. Let's see. Do we have anything matching up? Just right here. And I think I do need to change the direction of which way I press it. I would like to have my seams nesting, and this one is pressed this way. So I'm going to go back and press this one this way. So I can just finger press it right now and then give it a good press here in a minute. So this way my seams will be nesting. Now we're going to put these 2 together, and right where those seams meet, lay the seams right on top of each other. I have this seam allowance going this way, that seam allowance going this way. I can feel right there that they flatten out real nicely and they are nested. So let me grab my pin here and put a pin right next to where they meet. And then check my ends, match up my ends. And it looks like I have both sides about the same, so if you have a looser side, that will go toward your feed dogs. So 1/4 inch away from this edge right here. And there we have those two pieces sewn together. I end up pressing toward this piece because there's a lot of little seams right in here and I didn't want to add any more bulk to that. We can then add this one right here, and this one is actually going to go that way. We don't want to have it going the wrong direction, and that's the hen's tail. So we are going to put it right sides together, just like this, and so 1/4 inch away from the edge there. And there we have all of those pieces sewn together. Now I did press this one toward this piece. It does not matter which way you press it. There's not going to be anything meeting that seam right there. Okay, so we've got that part right there. Let's move over a little more to the right and let's grab Q and D. And you may be hearing some thunder. We are getting ready to have a little thunderstorm. So there is Q, and then there's several D's, so I'm just going to take one of these D's for now. And we are going to put D in the bottom left-hand corner, just like this. And we're going to make a stitch and flip corner. Some people call them snowballed corners, whichever you prefer. And so once they're lined up, we can draw that diagonal line right there. And we're going to sew right on that line. And I will start either side on this one because both of them have the edge. I am going to now press this back to see if we've covered up all of that fabric, and yes we have. So we can trim that off 1/4 inch away from that seam, and I can give this a finger press for right now. And I don't think it matters which way I press it. Nope, it doesn't, so I'll just press toward the dark. And so this piece is finished, and it's going to go right here. Now, like I said, we've got a little thunderstorm going in the background. Today got to be 87 or 88 degrees, and this is just the end of March in Northeast Missouri, and that is highly unusual for this time of year. We usually are in the 50s or 60s. That would be more like the correct temperature. But we've had really bizarre temperatures lately, and so it is supposed to drop to around 40 tonight, and then tomorrow it's supposed to be a lot cooler. So of course, when you have such a big difference in temperatures, you're going to get some thunderstorms, and that's what we're going to get tonight. So it will cool it off, and we do definitely need the rain. All right, so let's get back to this. Now we need our other D, and so let's grab the D, and while we're getting that, let's get the J's, 2 J's, and a V. And I think I am going to change that on my pattern because I think I labeled those K. No, I think I'm going to keep them J, but I'll change this. This should be J, and there won't be a K on this pattern. So I'll have to go back in and correct that. So we've got 2 J's, which are the beak fabric. Then we've got our V, and we've got our D. So these are basically going to be making another one of our flying geese units, very small one, just like the one that we made up here. Okay, same size, just different fabrics. So let's start with one side, and just like we did a while ago, make sure that it covers the block and matches up all of those seams. We're going to take that corner off, so draw a line diagonally this way right here, because this one's going to go like this and be the beak. Oops, and I've got my pen in the way. So like that. So that's the way we want that to go. So the line goes just like that. And again, we can't do both of them at the same time. Now, it's okay to do the right one first and then the left one. It doesn't matter about that. But just do one side at a time. Now I'm going to draw, well, let's go ahead and put a little glue on that one. He's a little guy. And now I'm going to go to the sewing machine and sew right on that line. And again, I'm going to start on this straight edge. Okay, we're going to flip that back and trim that off. And there is a ladybug friend right here. If you live in the country, in the Midwest right now, you may be seeing those little pesky creatures. And those aren't just your regular ladybugs. Those are some kind of Asian ladybug. And they have become quite the pest up here. We live right next to cropland, and so they seem to always be around. And in the wintertime, they like to hibernate in the houses and attics and sheds and things like that. And then once it warms up, they are out and about and trying to get out of the house. And so everybody around here right now is complaining of these little creatures because they're trying to get out of the house, and they're actually in the house even though they had been in either the siding or the attic before. And so it is just a pain. They were accidentally, or I think they were actually brought in to kind of be like a ladybug, and they found that they're invasive. So if you live in the Midwest, you probably know what I'm talking about. Okay, so now we're going to do this one. I did it the same way we did a while ago. Got my line on there, put a little bit of glue, and be sure I line all those edges up just like that. Okay, now I'm going to sew directly on that line, or just a little bit off to the side of it, you know, just right next to it. And it would be on this side actually, because this is your corner that you're going to cut off. Well, I will tell you the change in temperature right now is feeling much better. It's been really hot, and I refuse to turn my air conditioner on at the end of March. Okay, so I flipped that one back, and it is right there. And if it starts thundering and lightning a lot, I will probably stop, because I don't want to be messing with my sewing machine. I'll unplug my sewing machine so that it won't be hit with lightning and damaged. So there we have our little flying geese beak, and it's going to go just like that up here. But we need to attach it to D. So we're going to do this, and I noticed this one right here is a little off, and I'm going to trim that up just a little bit. This edge right here, and so what I know is this background piece is straight, and so if I put my line on that background piece right there, anything that hangs over, when I've got this one on the, I believe that's the 1.5 inch line, I've got that little corner right there hanging over, and I've also got a little bit up here hanging over. Not much, but if they get a little bit out of shape, you could do that. And here I am sitting here talking and not really watching what I'm doing, so mine got a little bit out of shape. So I'm going to trim this one too. Again, it should be 1.5 inches wide. Just a few little tiny pieces. Okay, so now here's how this is going to go. This is your beak, and it's going to go right here with this piece. So we're going to put right sides together, and just like when we were doing the crown, when you're sewing these two pieces together, I prefer to have this piece up, the flying goose block or the flying geese block up, and that way I can watch my point right there and just stay just to the right of it, and that way it will not cut my point off. And there we have it. My point looks good. I press toward the chicken fabric. So now that is our beak. So it's going to go here. This is going to go here. And we need R and D. And so here is R and here is D. I'm going to put D in the upper left-hand corner, just like that. I'm going to draw a diagonal line. Like that. And I'm going to sew right on that line, starting either side on that one. And if I fold it back, it looks good. Let me just cut a 1/4 inch away from that edge there. And there we have that piece, just like this. Now we can sew this strip together, but we can't attach it to this one yet. So I'm going to go this piece right here, right sides together. And let's see if we have... Yes, we are going to be matching up a seam right here. So I'm going to fold this one toward the background. That way my seams will just not be as bulky. Okay, so this was like that, and this one goes like that. So when we put them together like this, they are not going to meet. Like this is the seam for this one right here, and this is the seam over here. So it's scooted over a 1/4 inch, because when we go a 1/4 inch down right there, it should hit that seam. And it does. And so we know, you can see it there, we know that that's going to intersect right there. And so I'm just going to put my pin right here, and I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch away from that edge. And there we have it. This seam right here does not match with anything, so I just pressed it this way because we have a lot of little seams in there and I don't want to add extra bulk. So we've got that. Now we're going to take this piece and we're going to add this one to it, and this is going to be the same thing. I meant to see. Okay, do you see how that point right there came right to that seam? That's because we got it perfect when we went a 1/4 inch down and it went through the seam back there. Okay, that's what happens. Now if yours doesn't look exact, don't worry about it. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing here. These two seams are going to match, but they're going to match a 1/4 inch down below the edge of the fabric. So match up the sides, take a pin, put it a 1/4 inch down. You can eyeball it or actually measure it, and that looks pretty good. I think I've got it there. So I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch away from this edge. And I pressed it toward this side, and again you can see it matched really nicely right there. And so that piece right there is finished. All right, now we can go ahead and we can put this block together, which is F and S. But after we get these two blocks together, we're going to have to make the star. So here is F and here is S, and we're going to put right sides together, and it's going to go right down here at the bottom. And remember to match up all of your edges there, and it needs to be at an angle like that. So we'll just draw our line right there. Now on this one, we're going to sew right on the line. Okay guys, my battery went out and I think I missed some things, so let me show you what I've done. So basically what I had, let me grab this. I think I was at the point when I was explaining to you that once we put piece S on top of piece F, and we drew our diagonal, that I was also going to do another seam about 1/2 inch away. And so I did that, and then I cut right between the seams, and here we have our fun little half square triangle that we get to put aside and keep for another use. And we now have this piece right here. Okay, so I'm going to press this one just toward the dark, but right now this is as far as we can go on this block without having our other block right here. So we're going to make that 6-inch Sawtooth Star, and if you already know how to make a 6-inch Sawtooth Star, or you want to make a different block, you can just fast forward past that, and then we'll be putting the block in with the hen. So I'm going to move all of this aside and grab my other fabric. Okay, now let's make our Sawtooth Star quilt block for the center of our hen. And for this, I am using this little cheat sheet that is from Amy Smart, Diary of a Quilter's blog page online. And if you watched me making the tote, the Americana tote the other day, I used this pattern and I shared it with you for the Sawtooth Star blocks. And on this, it's called a cheat sheet because it's got several different size blocks you can make and all of the different cuts you need for each of those blocks. And this is a Sawtooth Star just like this one right here. Now if you look at this, this is made up of flying geese blocks. So we have those yellow and blue right there is a flying geese, flying geese, flying geese, and flying geese. These are flying geese right here, okay? So we're going to be making a 4 at a time flying geese for this Sawtooth quilt block. Now, if you want your block to blend in with your chicken like this one, where your background is the same color as your hen, then you need to cut the goose and the outside squares in your hen fabric, okay? So that means this one right here is your outside square and this is your goose. You'll be needing to cut those with the fabric that your hen is made up of. And I've got my hen right here. My fabric cuts right here. And so if I look on a 6-inch block, which is what we're making, it's going to be 6 inches finished. It needs to have sky squares 2.5 inches squared. Goose square is 4 1/4 inch squared. The center square, this right here, is 3.5 inches squared, and the outside squares are 2 inches squared. So my center, or my goose square, which is this fabric right here, this is the goose on the flying geese blocks. Right here's the flying geese block. This is the goose. These are the sky. The goose is named the goose because of the V formation that geese fly in when they're flying. And this is the sky, which is their background, okay? So here is my goose square. It is 4 1/4 inches. These are my outside squares, and they are 2 inches. These are my, it would be called the sky on the flying geese block, or we could call it the points of the star. They're this fabric right here, and that's going to be 2.5 inch squares. And then this is the center of my Sawtooth Star, this piece right here, and it needs to be 3.5 inches, okay? So if you want this right here, it is linked in the description box below, and be sure you check out all of Amy Smart's different things. She's got lots of freebies on her site. She's got really a wonderful site. I learn a lot from her. So that right there gave me the cuts. Now it's time to put these together. So we're going to do the flying geese 4 at a time method here. And what I need is I need my goose square and I need my sky squares. So that's what these are right here. So it's real simple. Take 2 of your sky squares and put them in opposite corners on your goose square, just like that, okay? Now on these, we are going to go from corner to corner on our block. So let me just take this away here real quickly so you can see the corner. It doesn't blend in with that fabric. And I am just going to draw a line from corner to corner. And you want to be as accurate as you can. I think these are just a little bit oversized, but not much. We're going to do the same thing with this one. In fact, we're going to do the same thing with all 4 of these. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my lines in on all 4 of the sky squares. Okay, so we're going to start with the 2 first. We are going to put them in opposite corners on our goose square, and we're going to be putting that diagonal line going right through this goose square. And when we put these squares in opposite corners and line them up correctly, that line should be perfectly straight, okay? Then you want to take a couple of pins, and I usually just put some pins there and just out of my way when I'm sewing there, and just make sure your edges are matched up. Again, this will make a difference in how your flying geese turn out. The accurate cutting, the accurate pinning, and the accurate stitch is all going to make a difference, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my sewing machine and I'm going to go 1/4 inch on this side of the line and then 1/4 inch on this side of the line, and I'll be right back. And then we'll remove the pins. And we are going to cut right on that line. Okay, now we have 2 pieces that look like that, and I am going to flip them back and I'm going to give them a good press and make sure I don't have any little pleats or anything when I press them back. Okay, and they kind of look like little cat heads or fox heads. Now we're going to take our other 2 sky squares, and this time we're going to take the line going like that, and we're going to make sure our edges are matched perfectly, and this line should go right up into the middle of these 2 peaks, just like that. I'll put a couple pins on each side out of my way. And now I am going to sew 1/4 inch on both sides of each of those lines. Okay, so let's pull those pins, and now we are going to cut right in the middle of those 2 lines, or those 2 stitches right on that line. All right, and when we flip this back, we have a flying geese block right there. And so each of these are going to make flying geese blocks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my iron and I'm going to press all of them back, and I'll be right back. And here are the flying geese blocks, and as you can see, they are not perfect. They've got pieces hanging off on them because we need to trim them up. Now she says right here that once you're finished and these are in something, they're going to measure 1.5 by 3. But what we need to trim them down to is 2 by 3.5. And right now, let's see if I've got a ruler here. These measure, oh, probably 2 1/4 by a little more than 3 1/2, you know, and each one's probably going to be just a little bit different depending on, you know, their seam allowance, but probably like 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch off. Now I'm going to show you how, and again, let me remember, 2 by 3 1/2. Okay, I'm going to show you, if you don't have a specialty ruler to trim up your flying geese like this one. This is the wing clipper, and it's the one I like to use. I'm going to show you how to use just a square ruler, since most people will have that if you're quilting. This has to be 3 1/2 by 2, just by 2, okay? So when I measure it right now, I've got 3 and almost 3 3/4 by 2 1/8 or 2 1/4, getting close right there. So what I need to do is think, okay, if this is supposed to be 3 1/2 inches, half of 3 1/2 inches is what? It would be 1 1/2 plus 1/4. So this is going to be 1 3/4 right here from both sides to the center. We need 1 3/4 inch. Okay, so here's my 1 3/4 inch on my square ruler. That's the line right there. It needs to go right through that peak. Okay, and actually, you know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to turn it this way. That way I can use this diagonal line here too. So 3, and I'm going to slide it up a little bit. 1 3/4 on this point right here with this diagonal line here is right there. Let me move this down. Let's make it so you can see it a little better. Okay. Get a little pin here so my big old fingers won't be in the way. Okay, so here is the diagonal line on my ruler. Here is the seam. My goose is pointing down. I'm putting this line right here. I know that half of 3 1/2 is 1 3/4. So this is my 1 3/4 line right here, and it needs to touch this point right there. And I realize my block becomes a little fuzzy when my hand is there, so I'll try to keep from doing that. Okay, so I've got my lines there, and I've got my point right at 1 3/4. So anything right here I can take off. And I'm not going to take anything off of that just yet. Actually, I can. Let me go ahead and take whatever's up there off too, because this is right at that point, and that's right where we want it to be. So that and that. Now when I did cut this block, this little point right here is, you know, going right off the corner. So be sure that that looks just like that, okay? So now I've got these two sides trimmed up, and I just need these two sides. So when I flip it over like that, now I know that this has to be 3 1/2 by 2 inches. So I can just line up this one on my 3 1/2 inch edge, and I can just line this one up on my 2 inch edge, and anything that is hanging over this and this gets trimmed off. So that and that. And this isn't a hard way to do it. It's just that you're going to have to do a little math in your head. So we'll do one more like that. Again, they have to be 3 1/2 inches this way. So half of 3 1/2 is 1 3/4. I'm going to point the goose down. I'm going to put my 1 and my 1 right here, and this corner right here is going to be, or this line right here is going to be on my seam line. This point right here is going to be on my seam line, and it is going to be at the 1 3/4 inch point, just like that. Okay, so there I have 1 3/4 inch right there at that point. This is right on the seam. Anything here or here I can take off. And this one doesn't have much to take off there. Okay, and then once we turn it over, now we just need to make sure it's 3.5 here and 2 here. And anything hanging over will be trimmed off. Get those right on the lines. And you can see that that point right there of the geese and the sky is right on the corner. Okay, so that's not too hard right there. Okay, so those two we've got done. Now if you have this ruler, the wing clipper, and I'll put I think it's in my Fat Quarter Shop list down below, and this is by let's see who made this one, Studio 180 Design, and I like this one. This is the one I've used all the time. So I just put this, let's see, it doesn't really matter which way you go first. I think I'm just going to have it pointing up. It doesn't matter which one. And here's my 3.5 by 2 right here. 3.5 line, 2 right there. So I need to match it up with that little point. There's a little crosshairs right there. That's the point. This one right here should be at the 3.5. This one right here should be at the corner. If I've got those corners down there looking good, I should be good, as long as that one's good, because this right here is a 1/4 inch away from that tip. So I am cutting here and here. And then I flip it over, and this time I just use the 3.5 and the 2 line like that. And I also use this, and that's where my geese or my goose piece is. It should be right on those lines, and it is. And then trim off anything extra. So that worked perfectly too. And let's see, what if we did it this way, pointing up first? But let's point it down first. Okay, if I point it down first, again, 3.5 and 2, I can find this point right here and put it right on the goose seams. There's a line here, and there's a line here. And then just make sure everything is straight. Okay. And this should come right off the point there, and it does. That and that. And then flip it. 3.5 and 2. And this should go right into that position, and it does. That looks good. Trim off that. So there we've trimmed them 2 different ways, one with a square ruler and one with a specialty ruler. That one is the wing clipper. Okay, so now we have 4 really nice looking flying geese blocks. And I thought I'd just get a design board to put it on. That way I can take it over to my sewing machine easier. So these are the star points, and they go out. Make sure those points are pointing out. The goose is pointing in, or I should say the V formation. This is our center block. And these are the corner blocks, or the outside squares is what she calls them. Isn't that a pretty block? Okay, so this is the way we're going to sew it, and it's just like a 9-patch. We're going to sew this one to this one right here, this piece to this piece right here, and this piece to this piece right here. Once those 3 are sewn, we're going to flip them open, and we're going to do the same thing with these pieces here. We're going to sew this one to this piece, this one to this piece, and this one to this piece, and we're going to have 3 strips. Okay, I'll bring you back with the 3 strips. All right, so here I have my 3 strips, and I've set them out this way. Now when you're sewing these two right here to the center block, again, watch your point. This is probably more where you'd want your points to look perfect. You know, on the chicken it doesn't have to look, or the hen, it doesn't have to look quite as perfect, but here you don't want to get them chopped off. This one's a little far away, but it's fine. But you just, if you chop them off, you know, people will notice that more than you would on this, but not that anybody really is going to notice. So just try and see what you do. That's just something to aim for if it's something difficult for you. When I pressed, I like to press on the Sawtooth Star toward the fabric that doesn't have any seams. So that means the outside corners here and the inside. So when I press this way here and this way here and here, all of our seams are going to nest when we put them together. So now we're going to nest them. And again, we are going to have a point right here. So whenever I do sew that, I want to make sure I probably have this side up and just go right above that point, those stitches there. And I don't think you can see it in the camera, but there's stitches right there at that point. Just go right above it and don't cut your point off. But right now, let's just pin these together since we have them going opposite directions, the seam allowance going opposite direction. We can nest those seams. And I'm just doing that right here. Now, sometimes when you nest your seams, you might find that you have one piece of fabric that bulges out more than the other. And that one looks good, but if one of these was bulging a little bit more, that can go toward the feed dogs. But with this one, you know, you decide, do you want to get that point, or do you want to get, you know, the fabric, you know, all pulled in correctly? It's kind of a tough call on that one. I also match up my ends like this. That way we won't have one side get pulled more by the feed dogs and have the other side too long. And I'm going to go ahead and just put both of these on at the same time. Even though they overlap, we're only stitching on the outside, and that way I don't have to come back and pin it again. So doing this one here, same thing, matching up those seams, making sure they are nested. Same thing here, matching them up, nesting them, and then matching my corners. That down a little better there. And then I'm going to go to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew 1/4 inch away from the edge here and 1/4 inch away from the edge here. And I'll be right back. And here is our block. And as you can see, my points look good. And you can trim this up at this point, but one thing you want to make sure is you don't cut off and lose your 1/4 inch seam allowance right there on the points. And mine looks fine. There's a few little ragged edges, but once it gets sewn in, it'll be okay. But you don't want to trim it too far because you do need those 1/4 inch seam allowances on the end. Okay, so now we have this piece. Let me bring the hen block back over and let's get it pieced together. Okay, so here's what we have on our hen block, and here is our star. But before we put our star in there, there is a piece G that's going to go right there. And so it should be the same length, and it is. And we also have a piece I that's going to go down here, like that. So let me scoot this out of the way here. So what we want to do is we want to put this one right sides together like this, and this one right sides together. And you can pin if you need to, and we're going to sew 1/4 inch away from the edge. Now remember, we have our star points right there. So if you need to, and I've got mine folded so I can't see them, but you can mark them on your fabric, and when you sew this, I would sew on this side, and this is nice to have the piece that doesn't have any seam allowances on it down toward your feed dogs, because this way you won't get any of your seam allowances flip back, because there's nothing to flip back. So just watch your points when you sew these two pieces on. I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch here and a 1/4 inch from the edge here. And there we have our piece right here. And let's see, I'm make sure I have the thinner piece, which is G at the top, and the thicker piece down here. That way our star is more centered. Okay, so we've got this and this. There should be a piece right here, and that is H. So here is H right here. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to sew this one right here to this piece, and this piece right here to this piece, and we will sew a 1/4 inch away, and there's no seams to meet, so we don't have to worry about anything there. Just watch your star points again, and mine looked good from last time. I didn't, looks like they look good. Yep. So go ahead and sew those two pieces on a 1/4 inch away from the edge, and we'll meet back here. And there we have that piece right there, and that looks good. Now let's sew these two pieces right here together. And we don't have any, oh, we do have one seam right here matching, and of course I have them going the same direction. So I'm going to turn this one, I had pressed that one that way, I will turn it this way. So we've got this seam going this way and this seam going this way. So let's do this, and that way they will nest right there. Put a pin, and I'm going to match this end up right here. And right here. So let's sew this a 1/4 inch away from the edge, and I think I am going to put a pin right here in the middle so it doesn't scoot down on me. Okay. Okay, and so that one's sewn on right there, and it looks like our points stayed. So now we're not going to sew this one on just yet. We have a piece T right here that we need to put on right on this corner. So we are going to do the same thing that we've been doing with this piece. It's a stitch and flip, or a snowballed corner. We're going to draw a diagonal line just like this, and then I'm going to do another stitch about a 1/2 inch away, because I'll have an extra half square triangle. So stitch right on that line, then I'm going to add another one. All right, we've got that stitched, and I have an extra stitch line there that I'm going to use. Let me get a straight edge here. And we're going to just cut right between my two stitches. You might just have one stitch, and you'll just cut a 1/4 inch away from your stitch. And then we're going to flip that back, and there we have that. Now we get to add this one. So we're going to line it up just like this, and it should fit. We're going to put right sides together, and we are going to have one place right here where we're going to be matching a seam. This is an angled stitch, and this is straight across, so we are going to also be putting a needle in it to make sure that we're going to cross where those two pieces intersect. And so let's just first of all pin our ends. Then I'm going to go over here and take a pin and go about a 1/4 inch down, put it right in that stitch, and it matches up on the back. So that's going to be good. And then I'm just going to put one more pin here, that way these won't slip down. Now we're going to stitch a 1/4 inch away from that edge, and I'll bring you right back. And there is our hen block, and I think it looks really cute, just like that. Now, this block right now measures 12.5, I believe. Let me measure it. 12.5 inches squared. And once it's sewn into something, it will be a 12-inch finished block. So here is that. Now, if you're planning on doing the placemats, these little chick blocks we'll be making soon, so just stay tuned. I might be putting them in kind of a video where I'm cooking or something, just to put it in somewhere. It's not a hard block to make, it's really quick, but trying to find the time to get all of the different things that I do in all the different videos is a little tricky, so I'll probably be adding it to some video, and so just keep your eye out for that if you want the chick block. The rooster block that we made, this one right here, I am sharing the rooster or the chicken tracks, I guess. It could be rooster, hen, or whatever. I'll be sharing those blocks in the Sew Sampler box opening for March, so I'm not sure if that one's out or if this is going out first. I haven't decided which one I'm putting out first. So if you're looking for this block right here, that is in the Sew Sampler reveal for March. And so I thought this would be cute, making a placemat with this, and then of course the different, and you can have them going whichever way you want. Chicken tracks, and I thought that would make a cute placemat. So there is our hen block, and I hope you get a chance to make it. I think it turned out really cute. I'll be making another block that goes along with this series soon. If I had a finished block, I would be showing you, but I haven't made it yet, so that will be coming out after I've had a chance to fine-tune it and to get the pattern all exact and the way it needs to look. So look forward to that one coming out soon as well. And I've got several of them made, and I think this next one's going to be a fun one. So thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. That would help my channel out a lot. I really appreciate all of you who have been sharing and liking and commenting. That helps the algorithm and helps push my videos to more viewers so that they too can see that I have some free blocks for them and that they too can make these. So thanks again for watching. I appreciate you being here. I hope everyone has a great week, enjoys the weather, and our thunderstorm just must have blown over because it's just kind of windy outside right now. We really could use some rain, so we're hoping for some rain tonight. So thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you back here soon. Bye-bye.